Is. All right, so everybody should be able to hear me, hopefully. If not, go ahead and enter your comment in the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll take care of that. So today is the day we're going to have our flash webinar on the Power Dialer inside of Mojo. My name is David England. I'm the VP here at Mojo. I've been here for almost 10 years now, have taken Mojo from being a software-based platform into what it is today, a pretty robust web-based platform used by thousands and thousands of people all over North America. Along with me today is Brandon Wall. Brandon's been here about 9 years now, and he is the Mr. Mojo here on the floor. He knows a lot of stuff about Mojo, and he's going to answer any questions that you guys have. This is going to be a muted webinar, so if you have any questions, please type them into the questions pane of the GoToWebinar panel. Brandon will go ahead and answer those in real time. So as I'm giving you the presentation, if you have any questions, go ahead and type those in. He'll answer them, hopefully. He may leave them unanswered until the end of the webinar. I don't know how he's going to do that, where I will go through the list of questions that have been asked and kind of focus on some of the popular ones to make sure that everyone gets to hear them if it's a good question. All right. So that's the introduction. This is a flash webinar. We do them periodically. We used to do them on a pretty standard schedule, but lately we've been really busy in development and coming up with cool new features and ideas. We've kind of put them on the back burner. Today we're going to try to end that. We usually do flash webinars based on a module inside of Mojo. Again, today's the Power Dialer. Next week or the week after, we might do action plans. We might do marketing. We might do activities or workflow. Again, today we're primarily going to focus on the Power Dialer. 99% of the people that come to Mojo come to us for the Power Dialer, so it's a great introduction. I purposely targeted you folks that have been with us for less than 3 months. The typical gestation period for a client, or the gradual workflow is you get Mojo, you open it up, you're a realtor, you have a lot going on, you look at it for 5 minutes and you close it down. A week goes by and then you go, oh yeah, I got Mojo. And then you log back into Mojo, you've got questions, you can't make our daily webinar training webinars, and then eventually you come here to this flash webinar. So I know for a lot of you on this call, I'm catching you at the opportune, the best time to go over the Power Dialer. We're going to go into stuff that you don't normally see on the training webinars because, again, I'm focusing my time on one module. It gives me more time to do that. So I've stated the rules. It's going to be muted. Any questions, please type them into the GoToWebinar panel, and Brandon Wall will answer those to you as they answer those for you, as those come in. So like with anything, the first thing you should try to do with Mojo, especially the Power Dialer, is set it up. Setting up the dialer is very important. By skipping this process, you're always going to be coming back to step one over and over and over again because there are several things you have to set up in order to use Mojo. So in order to cover those things, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on the settings option in the navigation pane. And when I do that, the first settings I'm going to see are all related to the Power Dialer. Caller ID, callback and voicemail messages, and then the Power Dialer specific settings. So one thing I didn't point out leading into this webinar is at the end of the webinar, I'm going to cover some tips and some common mistakes people make when using Mojo. And I don't want you to realize these mistakes too late or too far along in your time here because you won't be as efficient prospecting. So hang on until we get to the end of this. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is caller IDs. Obviously, you have to have a caller ID to use Mojo. It's a first setting we have because it's that important. Now, with caller IDs, it's really simple to add a caller ID. You just click on the Add Caller ID button. And because you can't spoof a caller ID inside of Mojo, that's a no-no. You enter your phone, you give the caller ID a name, whether it's office, cell, home, whatever. And then when you click verify, I won't do it today on the demonstration because you won't be able to see this part, but if you click verify, a dialer will call you. It'll play a message, press 1 to verify, something along those lines. You press 1, and what'll happen is you'll then see the number added to this grid. Now you can name, it makes a lot of sense, name or label your caller IDs. And you can also share those caller IDs if you're in a multi-user environment. And at the end, we're going to talk about why it's a good idea to have more than one caller ID. It seems really obvious, but we've got some spin on it that will make you probably reconsider having just one caller ID. So that's the first thing we need to do in order to use Mojo is set up our caller ID. And before I go any further, just in case you're not clear on what the caller ID is, even though you're calling into the Mojo system and we're making the call for you, we're going to pass through that 10-digit phone number as if you're actually making that call. So very important. That is what the people you're calling are going to see on their phones. The next place we're going to go, the next most important part of the setup, is the callback and answer machine messages. Inside of Mojo, we'll demonstrate in a bit, you can drop pre-recorded messages when you hear it in your headset. Common question that we get is, if I'm using Mojo and one of the lines, and I'm on the phone with someone, one of the lines hits an answer machine, will it drop an answer machine message that I've recorded? And the answer to that is no, we don't do that. We only let you drop the message when you hear it in your earbud because we don't want to risk you accidentally dropping one on a live person, because any answer machine detection is only as good as about 92% accurate. So we don't want to get you into that mess. So if you're on the line with somebody in line 2 or 3, and we'll talk about how the dialer works here in a moment, but if line 2 or 3 hits an answer machine, where we will detect it and hang up. All right, so here's where we're going to record them. So what's a callback message? Voicemail is pretty obvious. A callback message is important to anybody who is multi-line dialing with Mojo. Many of you may be using just the single line, and that's okay. This doesn't pertain to you. But if you're using the multi-line dialer, we dial out in rounds of 3 and then stop. And we stop and we don't progress until all of those 3 lines have some sort of a call outcome. We're not a predictive dialer. That's why so many people use and love Mojo, because predictive dialers give you a lag, a delayed hello. They're not real good in the real estate or insurance environments because in order to leverage their efficiencies, you have to have a lot of people using them on the same account. So I'm dialing out on 3 lines. Line 1, it's a live answer. I go into my pitch, I start the conversation. Line 2 and 3 are going to continue to dial until something happens, and then they stop. Well, if that something is someone else picks up the phone, they're going to hear the callback message played. And the script you use is up to you. We don't provide one. You can do, hello, there's something wrong with my phone. Let me call you right back. You could say, hey, this is Dave England with Mojo Realty. I have to grab another call. Hold on, I'm calling you right back. Any variation of that will work. And again, you're on line 1, line 2 picks up. We detect it's a live person. We drop that message. And then the system will automatically call that person back right away as soon as you're done with that call on line 1. But you need to know that Mojo doesn't just dial numbers repeatedly while you're talking to somebody. It's a nice feature inside of Mojo. So to record these, it's really simple. You can either click on the add voicemail message or add callback message, follow the prompt here in the pop-up, give it a number for the dialer. I was about to use some back-end terminology, would have made you well confused. Sorry about that. The dialer will call you. You pick up the phone. You give it a name. You pick up the phone, and then you listen to the audio prompts to record that message. Once you've recorded the message, it'll save it, whether it was a voicemail message that you recorded or a callback message. And then once you have them saved, you can click one and choose play so you can hear it. You can re-record it, you can rename it, or you can delete it. So callback message, you have to have it in order to do a multi-line dialing session. It's not optional. And then, of course, dropping voicemails is optional. We'll talk about that. I'll try to remember that at the end, give you some tips on how to do that the right way. But you may decide not to do that, so it's not necessary. The next settings we're going to talk about, it's a laundry list here, Zone Guard. Some of you either work across the country, meaning, either you're an ISA or If you're in insurance, you likely call across time zones. If you're an ISA or an assistant in a real estate office, you may be on the East Coast, but your broker or your agent is on the West Coast. Whatever it might be, you can use the zone guard to set the time span that it's okay to call. So if I wanted to say, hey, I only want Mojo to dial people that are that where I'm calling, and that's between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., let's just say, I would set that here, and the dialer would omit anybody that doesn't fall into those time parameters. Live answer beep. If you're a multitasker, live answer beep will play an audible tone inside of your headset or your phone to let you know that that line has gone active, that someone's picked the phone up. So if you like to multi-tab through your browser, or maybe you're like me and you're always standing up and you're full of energy and it's got nowhere to go, so you gotta kind of move around and you're looking to the left, you're looking to the right, the live answer beep can make sense. Here is a warning about the live answer beep. It competes with first hello answers, meaning when the call goes live, yes, you hear the beep, but no, you need to take that as your first hello. Somebody's there. Otherwise, if you don't go into it understanding that and someone picks up the phone and they hear the beep, if you continue to wait for the hello, what you're doing is you're presenting the situation where there's a delayed hello on their end. They know that someone is there, they picked up the phone, you hear the beep, and then they're waiting. So you have to lead right into, hey there, is Joe home? You can't wait for them to say hello. If you do, it'll be the second time, and we don't want to do that to you. So use it with caution. All right. No wait voicemail drop. Some people, when using Mojo, when they drop pre recorded answer machine messages, don't want to have the automation in place where the system waits for the beep and drops it. Here's the workflow. I'm dialing out. Line one picks up. Hi, this is Dave England from Mojo. Please leave me a message. Before that message ends, by default, you can press drop message and it will wait for the beep and drop the message. Some people have found that calling like Sprint telephone lines, cell phone lines, that message is getting cut off because of the way our technology works. And excuse me, it's AT&T. And what they'll do is they just wait for the beep and then press it, and then it drops it immediately. It doesn't wait for the beep, and it ensures that it drops correctly every time, whether they're calling AT&T or not. And to turn that on, you simply click the manual voicemail drop checkbox. So that may be something you want to think about. Left-handed dialing bar, let's cruise right through these so we can get to the meat of why you're here, is an option where the dialing bar that you see inside of Mojo can be on the left side. If that's where, if you're a lefty and you're one of those folks that has like a left hand, use your mouse, your left hand, it may make sense ergonomically to keep your eyes and hand on the same side of the screen. And you can check this box and that dialing bar shows up on the left. Do not delete disconnected phone numbers. By default, if we identify a phone number, if the telco gives back a proper signal, all right, the signaling's correct, and it's like this is a disconnected number, we're going to go ahead and mark that as disconnected. The line will end the call and instantly start dialing either the next number on that record or the next contact. Now, when that happens, by default, we pull that phone number off of that record. We delete it. Why? Well, chances are you don't want that bogus data in your database, right? But there are occasions, it happens up here in the Northeast pretty frequently, where an ice storm will come in the late spring. It'll wipe out a bunch of phone lines, telco infrastructure in a neighborhood, and it will give an incorrect, disconnected number message. So in that case, some people don't want us to delete the disconnected numbers. So they check that box, and then whenever Mojo hits a disconnected number, it won't delete the number from the record. Last but not least, this is what we're going to dial on today, is a training calling list. I can't emphasize this enough. Beat the heck out of that thing, especially if you have a multi-user account or if you're an agent on the phone who's got an ISA or an assistant. Make sure that they're utilizing this. Right? It's kind of like a flight simulator. You're going to want to get in there and practice. And what's cool about this is even if you delete the training list out of your data area, you can come back to the settings and check the box and then uncheck it and check it again, and it will reload it as if you've never called it before. So if you feel like you've deleted the training list and you want it back, you don't have to call us, just click that. Okay, that's going to wrap up the hardcore settings for the dialer. The next thing we're just going to touch on real quick is Mojo Voice. This comes in a lot on the technical support line. I'll try to keep it short and sweet. Mojo Voice is a product that we sell. It's a virtual phone number. There's two options. There's a basic service for $5 a month, and then there is a higher tier service for $10 a month. The difference? The $10 a month service, the enhanced Mojo Voice is what we call it, has voicemail. So it's a virtual phone number service. If you wanted to purchase Mojo Voice, you would click on Add Mojo Voice. You'd select either Mojo Voice Standard or Enhanced, and you can hover over the informational icon and it explains it. You click Next. You decide on what term, whether it's 1, 3, or 6 months you want to buy it for. Then you click Next. You agree to the terms and conditions. Click Next again, and then you give us the area code. So let's say you worked in Maine. Maine's our neighbor here in New Hampshire. 207 area code, simple. You could put in 207, and we're gonna find you a 207 phone number that you can purchase for that term for either $5 or $10 a month, and you can use it to pulse out. And then when someone calls it back, it will route to whatever phone number you put in this text field. And you can also initiate something called the DNC feature, where when they call it back, it asks them to press 9 if they want to be removed from the list. And that could be handy because some of you have probably figured out already that if you call 100 people, 10% or so, 12% are going to call you back just because they see the phone number on the caller ID, and half of those are going to tell you to take them off your gosh darn list, right? So this gives them a way to do that without you having to hear about it. So you can check that or uncheck that. With the enhanced Mojo Voice, it adds another level. When they call in, you can have a voicemail greeting played. And then inside of Mojo, not only will it email you the voicemail, but it's also going to show up in the Mojo Voice report, which we'll cover at the end of this call, as well as on the individual contact record. So you always have access to the communication that you've had with that person. Okay, let's get past this. And of course, you can have as many Mojo Voice numbers as you want. We'd be silly to only sell you one, right? Just kidding. All right. So the next thing we're going to touch on is just calling scripts. A lot of you are trained by either your brand or your coaching organization to use calling scripts. It's a no-brainer. Practice doesn't make perfect, folks. It makes permanent. And the best thing you can do for your career prospecting is follow a script. You're going to hear some coaches talk about not following scripts. And while I completely understand that, when you've been doing it for years and you're really acclimated to prospecting, I would still tell you to follow a script. Maybe not read from it verbatim, but at least have it in front of you in case you lose your step. But Mojo comes by default with a list of popular calling scripts. These are calling scripts that were contributed by a Mojo user. I think some of them are from Tom Ferry way back in the day. He had a bunch of scripts that his assistant provided us for our users. It's all good stuff. And the one thing that's great about calling scripts, they don't really vary from one to another. A just listed, just sold, or a farm, or an expired, or a FSBO script, they're all pretty common. So before you go and type out your own by clicking on this create button and spending the time doing that, make sure you take a look at the calling scripts that we already offer and maybe edit the information that's in them before you go ahead and go through the time of creating your own. So those are calling scripts. So we're going to talk about calling scripts when we get to the call wizard. And again, we're talking about how do you set up Mojo to be able to use it successfully from day one. The next thing, the last thing we're going to talk about here, or second to last thing, I promise, is a lead sheet. Lead sheets are a way for you to create a questionnaire inside of Mojo. And then when somebody's on the phone, when you've got somebody on the phone, or your ISA is somebody on the phone, whoever's on the phone with your leads, they can ask those questions. So we're accepting information. We're drilling in. We're pulling out those gold nuggets from the conversation. Why didn't your last home sell? Or why didn't the listing agent sell your home last time? When are you looking to move? If you sold your house tomorrow, where are you going to move? Why are you moving? All those questions that you guys are all so naturally inclined to ask. you can put them in a lead sheet. Now, of course, being in the industry so long, we have the popular lead sheets in here that are pretty universal. And here's an example of one: an expired property. Now, because this is already in the system, all I have to do is double click on it, hit edit, excuse me, my bad. And it's going to pop up the raw form. This isn't what it looks like on inside of Mojo when you're using it, but this gives you an indication or some idea of what it looks like when it's completed. You can choose to have multiple question types. You can give it a title. You can rearrange the questions so that they're asked in a different order if you want to change up your order. And, they really work well. A lot of people use them. And then once you fill it out, when you have someone on the phone and you actually fill it out, you can either print it, it'll always save to the record. You can, the most popular method with lead sheets is you can email them off to somebody. So let me just quickly give you a tip. You have somebody setting appointments for you. They're calling from 7:30 in the morning till 11, let's just say, and they set 3 appointments. Wouldn't it be nice if you could still control the conversation but not have to be on the phone? How do you do that? Well, you lead your telemarketer or your ISA through the conversation. The first half of it is with a calling script. The second half of it is with a lead sheet. And then we're done with them. When they're done, not only do they set you that appointment, but they email you the lead sheet. So you get all the information you require going into that appointment. It's a really slick thing. All the big teams use it religiously. It works really well. And a lot of single agents use it just so they can refer back to what they spoke about. So these are the default ones that are in here. By default, when you sign up for Mojo, except for the lead sheet, that's a test one, my apologies. Or you can just add a new one. And when I click add a new one, you give it a name and you start to build it out. Very simple to do. I just want to plant the seed so you guys go in there and look at that. Last but not least, I promised, appearance. Everybody on this call has bought a new car before, right? Or maybe you haven't. Maybe you're like some friends of mine and you're super, super, super conservative and you only buy used cars. Either way, it's due to you, right? You get into it for the first time. What do? You look around. Steering wheel's too close. Move the steering wheel. I'm too far away from the pedals. I'm too close to the pedals. And you actually make it your own little cockpit, right? Well, Mojo's the same way. There are some things you can do prior to prospecting to help make your experience better. One of those things is you can change the layout of the contact form. The contact form is super important because as you're talking to people, that's what you're looking at. And there are 4 options. They kind of emphasize different things. I'm not going to go into it all today on this call, but I would strongly suggest you open up your Mojo account. It's probably already set to option number 1. I believe that's default. Look at your contact form, come back to settings, make it option number 2, review it, continue on until you get to 4 and decide which one do I like better. Do I like emphasizing the lead sheet and the miscellaneous fields over the notes? Or am I a big note taker and it's more important that I'm seeing most of my notes and not as many miscellaneous fields before I have to scroll? Or do I have a lot of groups? And groups are super important because I've been using Mojo forever. I'm actually using Mojo correctly. I've got a dynamite workflow and groups are really important to me and I have a lot of them. Well, maybe you want to emphasize the groups, and these contact screen layouts will help you decide which one's best for you. You can change the color, blah, blah, blah. But the main thing I would focus on here is the actual contact screen layout. Speaking of contact forms, let's go back to the data and dialer. This is where most of you are going to come to either when you use the power dialer, when you use our marketing features, when you import data. This is like the central area, the nervous system of Mojo. So I'm going to go ahead. We have a bunch of bogus contacts in here. They're all called Mojo Contact. And this is that training list we were just talking about. So let's talk about some of the things you can do before we get into the dialing session. You would not believe. We have clients that have been with us since 2008 who don't know half of the things we do on this contact form. And they have an aha moment and they're like, oh, thank you so much for adding this. It's such a great help. And well, you're welcome. And then we hang up the phone and think, that's been in there for a long time. So I'm hoping to reduce some of that by going over this contact form really quickly. So again, you're going to be making phone calls. A contact form's going to pop up. The information for the person that just answered the phone is going to be right in front of you. This is where choosing the correct contact form for you as an individual is super important. Where do my eyes go? What's important to me? This is option number one. So let's just cover option number one real quick. At the top left, you're going to see an actions button, and that actions drop down is where you can, there's two places to set appointments, tasks, and follow-up calls. We'll get there. This is the first place. So I click on actions, and I can choose to create an appointment, a task, or a follow-up call, or I can choose to export the record. I can delete the contact. There's several things we can do here. The main thing I'm going to bring up, because I want everybody using these, are action plans. If I call someone that's an expired and they're on the fence, or my gut feeling tells me, okay, they're not relisting with their previous agent, or they don't have a brother or a cousin that is supposed to save the day and list the house for them, like the last 3 times they haven't sold it right. I need to follow up with this person. This is an opportunity. You're going to click on actions and put that record into an action plan. Super important. That's not what this webinar is about, but I just want to get you to that workflow. So that's what's in the actions pane. If you want to save yourself the click, these are color coded all throughout Mojo. This is an appointment. This is a task. This is a follow-up call. If I want to create an appointment, I don't have to click the actions button. I can actually go to my quick selector here. It's just a little icon, and I can create the appointment for the day and the time. I can assign it to somebody, all that fun stuff. And we cover a lot of this in the activities flash webinar. I can print a hot sheet for someone if I'm on the phone with them and I know I'm doing something with this lead. I actually print that hot sheet, which includes all their contact information. Again, another cool thing for your ISAs or telemarketers or yourself to do when you make contact and set an appointment, because then you've got a hard copy of everything. The main contact information's in here. If I click on the name, you'll see a second name option pops up, and this is ready to accept a second name. If I have a great conversation with somebody and I find out that, Mary's husband's name is Phil, is that important to me? Well, of course it is. When I show up for the appointment or when I follow up again and a man answers, I want to know who's answering the call. I can type Phil in here. The address is in here, the source, where the lead came from. In our case, there is no source. The time zone that Mojo picks based on the area code. Down here, we have our groups area, super important. We're going to talk about workflow briefly in a moment, but this is where we can access our groups with this contact form layout, and you'll know why you'd access them in a moment. We can put in a note while I'm on the phone with somebody, and I can post it. I can make it a priority note so that it always stays at the top in bold letters, like Red Sox fan, because I'm a Red Sox fan, right? New England. I can say priority note. Next time I talk to this person, what am I going to bring up? You better believe it. Red Sox, nothing breaks the ice like a common baseball team, being a fan of a common baseball team. All right. So I can I can assign this to somebody. I can give it a new manager. Let's say you have multiple people on your account. You have your front line that are making the phone calls, and maybe you have your closers or your agents. They can assign that lead to somebody using the manager function. It tells you what list they're in, and you can move them into a different list. You can add a phone number by clicking on add phone number. You can give it a label. You can decide what kind of phone number that is. You can mark it as primary. You can add as many phone numbers as you want in Mojo. You can add an email address, right? I spelled my URL wrong. That's embarrassing. You can give it a label, work. You can mark it as primary if you want, then it shows up right away. And then over here, this is where we get to one of those components of the contact form where you can decide to keep it here or not. But this is the miscellaneous field area in the lead sheet area. If you're in real estate and you're posting data from Mojo Expireds, RedX, Vulcan 7, that MLS data that's pertinent to that property is coming over in that post. So every property you have in your database has got that miscellaneous field information with the MLS fields. So this is probably an important tab to focus on. So this is a great layout for this. So this is where I would look to see when the status change date was. And you can go into the settings area and manipulate these however you see fit. It's just important to know that they're here and they're going to populate with the correct information as soon as someone picks up the phone. The next one is lead sheet. This is that lead sheet we're talking about. Now, it'll show me all the lead sheets I have inside of the system. I can use more than one lead sheet for a client. I may have called them as an expired, right? I may have listed them. Well, that original information is still important, right? But maybe they become, I sell them, right? And they become a past client. And now I have a past client lead sheet that I want to use. You can use multiple lead sheets and we'll save them. Again, you can print them, download them, or send them as an email. At the bottom, we're going to wrap this up, I promise, there's a street view. If there's a legit street address, if you click on Street View, you're going to see Google Street View. Why do we put that in there? Well, first of all, it was 2000 in May of 2009-ish that we put that in there because people were like, hey, I'd love to be able to talk about their neighborhood. Well, perfect. So we threw a tab in and here you go. If there's a legit, a geocoded with a long and lat address in here, which is not in this case, it'll show you a street view and you have controls to kind of move around. Hey, Bob, wow, great landscaping. Oh, yeah. Oh, you have nice, separation between you and your neighbors. They're going to love that. You know what you're talking about. You've done your homework. They don't know that you're looking at Google Street View, right? Activities is going to show you anything on the left-hand side here that you've scheduled in Mojo manually. So again, I come back up to the form for demonstration. If I set a task for this person, for today, I won't do anything else with it. You'll see it shows up here. It also shows up in the calendar inside of Mojo, but that's important, right? If you want to take a look at anything that's been scheduled manually for this person, here's where it's going to show up. I can clear the task from here. Some other things I can do here. I can manually, if I'm not using the power dialer for some reason, I can manually add a call attempt to somebody as if I called them through the dialer. It updates the reports and everything. I could say, call this person for 3 minutes. The last result was contact. I called them on this phone number, and I can enter a note. You'll see the temps goes up, and all the reports inside of Mojo, including the contact report, because I clicked contact, shows up. All get updated. I can also see stuff that you'll never probably want to see, but we'll point it out. Any next activity that's due, which actually you may want to refer to, but the create date, the modified date, and who the last person was that modified it. All right. The next tab is history. It just shows you everything you've ever done with this person. There's a full and a limited view. Limited sticks to just call activity, whereas the full shows you everything. So it's a full audit trail. Over here, we have our call recordings. If you have the call recording feature, which I didn't bring up, I can't believe I didn't bring it up. But basically, our call recording feature for $25 a month will record the calls of the people that either you get contact on as a last call result, which we'll get to, or DNC. And those call recordings are going to show up here. And then any letters that you print are going to show up here. Any emails that you've sent are all going to show up here with a status, whether they've been opened, if they opted out, click through, all that fun stuff. Action plans, if you assign an action plan, the activities specific to the action plan are going to show up in this tab. This is not the area for manually created. That is the activities area. Action plans are their own separate entity. Family, you can add family members. We're going to grow this feature out here soon to be a little bit more robust. And then, of course, you can add attachments to the record, maybe a CMA that you sent, something along those lines, again, to keep all of that contact history, all that throughput just on the contact record. So that's going to end that conversation because, holy moly, that was a lot to cover. Thank you for sticking with me. So now we're going to talk about workflow. Again, before we hop into the power dialer, we need to make sure you're ready to jump in the cockpit. The data in dialer area, again, it's like the central nervous system of Mojo. This is where all of your data is going to be organized and stored inside of Mojo. It's very important that you understand the hierarchy or the workflow of the data. Let's start on the left-hand side. Now, again, this is probably where you're going to have your first aha moment, or at least I hope you do, right? That's the whole point of this webinar. If you're in real estate, you're going to see the properties calling list. If you're not in real estate, go play solitaire for a minute because this isn't going to pertain to you. But in the data area, if you're in real estate, we've got the properties calling list. This area, this box, is very unique compared to the other two boxes here. And that is, you don't import data into this area, okay? The properties list and all the sub lists that are based on the listing status populate with data based on vendor lead posting. Meaning, if you're a Mojo expired customer, you get your expired leads from us, They're going to go into this property's calling list. That's where you're going to find them, and that's where you're going to initiate your call session from. If you get data posted from Vulcan 7 in a Mojo, again, that's where that data is going to be. If you get data posted in from the Red X, again, that's where your data is going to be. And the reason it's so important is this is where the updating happens. As long as your property data, you don't move it out of here, and you leave it in here, meaning you don't accidentally take your expireds from here and push them over to a calling list thinking that it must be a calling list you need to call on. If you don't do that, if you don't make that grave error, all of your properties are going to update. We've got relationships with RedX, Vulcan, obviously our own data, where if a property is expired on Monday and it becomes active on Tuesday, we're going to take it out of the expired sublist and stick it in the active sublist. You know not to call your actives, right? So but that link gets broken if you move data out of there. That's why property calling lists are so important. Regular calling lists are for things like you get data from, maybe you go right to your tax office and you pull down a bunch of data, and you have an assistant do lookups, and you have an Excel file. Well, you'll bring those in here. Let's say you subscribe to the Mojo neighborhood search, where you pull down all of our just listed, just sold, or cold calling data for a neighborhood. That's going to create a calling list. What's the difference? They're not updated. And it's for anything. File imports. You have cold directory and they post data to Mojo. Guess what? Goes into a calling list. You have telelisting, you're up in Canada, goes into a calling list when they post it in. So how would we identify, like, high level? Properties, lists, and calling lists are where your leads are going to be located. People you haven't spoken to, people that are new. You've attempted them. You haven't qualified them. You haven't landed them on the phone. You don't consider them qualified, because the workflow is we want to get data from the properties calling list or the calling list, depending on who we're calling. Okay. We want to get that over to the groups into a qualified status. Now, does that mean that the link gets broken immediately? No. If you bring an expired record into a group and it goes active, we're actually going to update that for you, stick it in your actives list, and delete any future activities you have on that record. So we protect you there. By the way, as you would imagine, that's a setting you can turn that off. But so don't fret about qualifying some property data that gets updated, that you would expect to get updated, into a group, thinking that you might call an active by accident. That won't happen. We've got the logic in place to suck it back out of there should that status update to a non-callable on market status. So why are groups important? Again, we want to get properties calling lists and calling lists, that new data, that unqualified data, the leads, and we want to put them into groups. And one of the important reasons for that is a common mistake people make is they'll call someone out of their expired list, let's say. They have a great conversation, they set an appointment, and they make the mistake the next day. Because they never qualified them and moved them into a group, they load up their expireds and they end up calling the person again. Because your state of mind is, I'm calling people I've never spoken to, I've got my script, trying to get them on the phone. So isn't everybody else in my MLS. Come on, pick up the phone. And then bam, someone answers the phone. You're like, oh my goodness, I just spoke to them yesterday and set an appointment for Saturday. Why did I call them? Well, because you didn't get them out of your groups. Now, some filters can take care of that for you, but again, the best workflow, left to right, get them into groups. That's the best workflow long term. And once they're in groups, you can dial groups by themselves specifically. I can load up all my hot leads. I can load up my not yet interested and take another pass at them. Obviously, a group of contacts is an SOI. So I might bring in my SOI, or my sphere, or my center of influence, or my past clients, have mets, have not mets. The list is long, folks. And we have clients that are super successful with Mojo. And when I ask them personally, Craig, why are you so successful with Mojo? How are you able to leverage a tool like you have? It comes back to what we're talking about right now, and that is, setting up Mojo correctly, writing down the sales workflow, how things are going to work, mind mapping it out, and then just replicating that inside of Mojo so that when you're on the phone, you're locked and loaded, you're making prospecting calls, everything's seamless and everything's where it's supposed to be. So that's the workflow inside of Mojo. Again, we want to make calls, whether it's properties we're calling, off-market data, or FSBOs, right? whether it's them that we're calling or it's calling lists that we generate from the neighborhood search, we want to get those into the designated groups. Now, of course, I can create a group and I can call it FSBO 30 day, meaning it's a brand new FSBO. They're an engineer. You just call them on day one, right? What they tell you. Folks, I haven't heard a script yet that will convert the engineer on day one of being a FSBO. But 30 days of headaches, of no-shows, of realizing that it costs money to market a FSBO correctly, and heck, you guys do this all day long, so why not leave it to the pros? They're about ready to hear that at 30 days. I'm not suggesting you wait the full 30 before you call them back. What I'm saying is don't ditch them. Qualify them into the FSBO 30 if they didn't tell you to go get lost and put them on your DNC list. Well, that's a lead, folks. You just qualified them. They have a urgency to sell their. Hopefully, they have a sense of urgency to sell their house. They're definitely motivated to sell their house. They wouldn't have put it on a for sale by owner site or whatever. We wouldn't have given it to you as a FSBO. So stick them in the FSBO 30, and then every 30 days, give them a call. That's how we use groups. And also, one other thing, super important, you can create a group folder. We'll call it FSBOs. And for right now, I just have this specific, unique FSBO group. If I had 10, I would have put all 10 in it, and all of a sudden, it starts to group my data nicely. All right. Last but not least, before we roll into the dialing session, guess what you can't do if, guess what would prevent you from using Mojo as a dialer? Not having data, right? So again, I just alluded to the fact that people post data into Mojo on behalf of our clients, including our own data services. In order to set up vendor posting, which we have a list of vendors that post into Mojo in our support area, there's a 10-digit posting pin. And I'm going to get off of this page for a minute just because this is important. There's a 10-digit posting pin inside your account area. It's right here. You would provide that to our partner, and then they would instantly connect your platform with them to Mojo, and the data starts rolling in. If you don't have lead posting, if you don't use Mojo's lead store offerings, then you're probably importing files. And in order to import a file, it's super simple. You just click on this import file button, locate your file, and then walk through the steps. It's not what this video is about, but I'd be silly not to let you know you got to import data before you can actually use a dialer. So that's how that works. Now, as I alluded to before, one last thing. If you import data, we don't allow you to import it into the property's calling list because our company and our partners that do post data are taking on the responsibility and kind of taking ownership over properties updating. If we allowed our users to just import data into those under the assumption that it's going to update, well, it's just not going to happen, and we have a breakdown in service. So we don't allow you to do that. All right, roll call, please. Now we're going to talk about the dialer specifically. So how do we load up a dialing session? The first thing we have to do is we have to tell the dialer what it is we want to call. You wouldn't ever be in a situation where you call your entire database, right? Or all your leads and your contacts, whatever the mix-up is. What you'd want to do is select the list, whether it's a properties calling list, for example, my expireds, or it's a calling list like my Mojo training list, or maybe that said the Jones neighborhood, whatever, or it's a group that I want to call. Either way, we got to select it. When we do that, what happens? Look over here. When I select a list, Mojo kind of says, okay, you've activated the system, and now you can press this big red power dialer button to begin your dialing session. And that's great. I could do that right now, but I want to point out that there's two ways to select data from a list and send it to Mojo. The first way, which was ultimately the way we're going to do it, so I'm going to save that for last, is you just select the list and press the button. That's simple. But what if you want to call a list of 10,000 records, and you want to filter that list. You want to only call people on Red Shear Court specifically. How would you do that? There's a couple ways you can do it, but the easiest way is you can sort based on address, city, state, any field you have here, and believe it or not, in the settings area, you can control what shows up here for a field. Maybe you only want to call people who had a status change date. I won't use that example because we have a specific calling filter for that, but maybe you want to call people in a specific area code. New Hampshire, 603. You can filter those out using our filters, and then when you get that specific data filtered in this main list, you can either send them all to the dialer or you can do a select. Hello, I'm on a Mac today. You can do, I'll do it this way. That's embarrassing. I've got to use my Mac keyboard. But basically, you can do what we call select to dial. So you can filter your data, you can arrange it, organize it, ascending order based on address, ascending order based on last name, and then you can do a select to dial. You select the records and then send them to Mojo, and it's going to basically forego all of our call plans that are in Mojo and dial it just like you see it there. So if I click Power Dialer right now, it knows, it understands I've selected a record in my grid. So I selected the list, and now I've selected one or more records. So it's questioning me. Do you only want to dial the selected records, or do you want to dial the entire list? And in this case, I'm not going to follow through with the dialing session, but I'm going to click selected records. And what you'll see is this call wizard, what we call the call wizard, the dashboard, the dialer dashboard. It's dumbed down compared to if I would have chosen the whole list. And that's because we don't offer you all the same filters because you told Mojo specifically how you wanted to call that data, the order, the filtering of it. So we dumb it down, and you'll know what that means here in a minute, or I'll show it to you visually. So what do we allow you to do when you do this? You can choose to turn Call Hammer on and off. And what's Call Hammer? Well, the great thing about Mojo, it started here, folks. I'm sure other people have caught on, but we did this years ago. Your contacts likely have more than one phone number. So most people want to saturate a contact when they're prospecting, right? They want to call them on all the available phone numbers. So with a Call Hammer on, Mojo can identify you didn't contact them based on your behavior. You didn't press the contact button. So you didn't get them on the phone. You don't reach your target. So if there's a second phone number with a Call Hammer on, it's going to call that other phone number instead of just move on to the next contact record. That may be something you guys didn't know about on this call. So certainly trying to saturate every contact completely is super important. Because while I love our data, while I know Vulcan's got great data, while I know the Red-X has great data, we all have great data, right? We're nowhere near being silver bullets. Oftentimes we'll give you more than one phone number, and unfortunately, you have to use the dialer to cull through the bad numbers to get to the good numbers. So this Call Hammer makes that a simple process. We can set up auto send email based on last call result, meaning if I have email templates in the system and everybody that I talk to, everybody that I press the contact button on, I want to send them a quick 2-liner that said, thank you for your time today. I'll follow up with you in a little bit or whatever. We can do that. All you have to do is go click on auto send email and choose the email template you want to send. And then every time you're dialing and you press contact, or if you map out an email to no contact or whatever, it's going to automatically send those emails out. So that's a great, quick and dirty way to get those emails out without you having to follow up after your call session, do it manually. All right, I'm going to go back here because the rest of the call wizard I was just showing you is also available in the main way that we're going to dial today. So I'm just going to unselect the list, select it again. I'm not going to select anything down here on the data grid. I'm just going to hit Power Dialer. All right. So it's warning me it's a training list, right? Because people get freaked out. The real people are going to answer the phone. So now this looks a little different. Now we have easy calling modes popping up. Why? Because this is call logic. In the previous method, again, you dictated what was being sent to the dialer. In this case, I'm not lazy, but I would rather have technology do the thinking for me. And this is what the call easy calling modes are. The first one is call this list from where I last left off, starting with new leads first. That's a lot to take in. But once I explain it to you, it's going to make perfect sense. Day one with Mojo, you have 100 expired leads. Let's use this as an example. You dial with Mojo, you had every intention of dialing all 100, but life happens. A customer comes through the front door of your office and was like, hey, and you have to stop. You've been interrupted. Or you want to go shoot 18 holes of golf. I don't know what it is, but you don't get through it. Don't worry about it. With this mode, the next time you go to dial with Mojo, you select the same list, and you choose this top option, Mojo knows where you last left off. So it's going to start there. So on day one, if I dial through 50, the next day it's going to start on record 51. Pretty sweet, right? Yeah, we think so too. There's nothing fancy about it. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. One unique thing about it that makes total sense is what happens every day. Well, if you're in a market, if you're in an expired market, right? So you're a realtor and you're calling on expireds. Generally speaking, you get new expireds every day, and you want to call those first. Again, with this mode, it starts with the new leads first. So in that example I just gave, if on Monday out of 100 I call 50, Tuesday, will it start on 51? Yeah, it will. But if I got 3 new expireds on Tuesday, it's actually going to call them first, then jump to record 51. I know, it's a great thing. So that is what call this list from where I last left off. That's what it does. And I just painted a very real scenario that happens every day inside of Mojo. Start where you last left off, but I want to call the new records in this list first. That's a no-brainer. The second option is simple. Call this list from top to bottom, regardless of where I last left off, in order of newest to oldest. Here's the problem with this. I like this, and a lot of aggressive agents use this, but you need to be very careful and and kind of know your work habits and get those under control. Because here's the deal: if I have 100 expireds in my list on Monday, and on Monday I dial 50 of them, right? So there's 50 that are not been called. If on Tuesday I load up the dialer and I choose this option and only call through 50 again, and that is my behavior inside of Mojo, guess what happens? That second half of my list never gets called by me because I keep stopping halfway through and choosing call this list from top to bottom. So be careful of that, folks. Don't get into that trap. We have people that'll call in and say, I don't understand. My FISBO list, I have 500 FISBOs, 200 have been called 16 times. The other leads haven't been called at all. So it's up to you to kind of know which mode to choose. Once you make the decision, Mojo automates everything. We already covered auto send email, so I won't get into that. But these optional dialing filters are super important. Again, call hammer in the case of calling an entire list is in the optional dialing filters. So I'm always going to leave that on. I can choose to have Mojo call a certain span of call attempts, like 0 to 4, 8 to 10, or I can just put in a 2 number, and basically Mojo will prevent the dialer from calling people I haven't spoken to. That I haven't spoken to yet in 10 attempts. So it'll prevent me from calling people that just aren't going to pick up the phone. And an agent down in South Carolina, I believe that's where Jason is. Jason Morris down in South Carolina. There's 2 Jason Morrises. So if you look him up, he's the one on my blog. Basically, he kills it with Mojo. I mean, his brokerage is on fire. He's been using Mojo for a long time. And when I asked Jason, I was like, hey, what is it about Mojo? What are you doing specifically? Filters, all this stuff. I'm like digesting it, right? Because that's how we make Mojo better. People don't just offer this stuff up, unfortunately. You got to like query him constantly. He's just like, look, I don't spend time on anybody. I think he's either 8 or 10 attempts. It's in the blog post. Yeah, he doesn't spend any time calling people more than 10 attempts. Why should he? If they haven't picked up the phone yet, you're wasting valuable time when either you can be calling somebody else that has less attempts than that might pick the phone up, or doing something else inside of your business. So that is productive. So it's a good idea not to spend a lot of time calling people that just aren't going to pick the phone up. And this is how you prevent that. You could say, yeah, there might be 10,000 expireds in my expired list, but Mojo, I don't have to do the work up front. With these optional dialing filters, I can just say cut it off at 10. So I may have, again, 10,000 expireds, but if only 400 of them have less than 10 attempts, that's all Mojo's going to dial. See how easy that makes it? I could say call people on my list I've not dialed ever. Today, the last 24 hours, that's a popular feature. Not contacted is another one. People I haven't contacted today, ever, 24 hours, 2 days. And we're going to talk about at the end of this in the tips. Let me just confirm here real quick. If I didn't write it down, I won't remember it. And I did, so I didn't, so I'm going to bring it up now. A lot of people use not contacted in this way. You're inundated with things you have to do if you're in real estate, and I keep talking about real estate because 99% of our customers are in real estate. But this would pertain to any industry depending on your needs. So real estate agents are inundated with all these things they have to do to make their business grow and thrive, right? One of those things of the million you guys have to keep track of is contacting your SOI or your sphere every 90 days. Not calling them, contacting them. So January 1, I have 100 SOI inside of Mojo. I can just dial them. The next day, let's say it's Monday. Let's just say it's the 2nd. It falls on a Monday. I dial through my SOI, and let's say I even get to the end of the list. Well, that's not my goal, is just to dial them all. I want to contact them all. So I could say, not contacted in the last 90 days, because they want you to contact them every quarter, right? That's what I hear all the time. So it will, on Tuesday, filter out everybody that I contacted yesterday and only leave the people that I haven't contacted yet. And then when the next quarter comes around, you start off with only call people I haven't contacted in the last 90 days. And basically it keeps you current. As long as you remember to fire the dialer up on those folks, it'll keep you current every 90 days. So you can ensure you can do the most saturation you can simply by utilizing that filter. Drop message skip. Let's blow through these. I'm being boring myself. Drop message skip is simple. Let's say you have your farm loaded into Mojo and you have like 10 streets in one list, and the Jones house, you have an open house, and you have a specific voicemail that you're dropping to invite people to that open house on April 10th. So you're calling and you're dropping that message. Well, the next day, 2 days later, 3 days later, as long as you're still marketing that Jones open house, what you can do is you can log in here and say, skip anybody I've left the Jones open house message on, and it will remove them from being loaded into the dialer. It'll filter them out so you don't accidentally drop that message again. Hopefully that makes sense. You can choose to dial based on a create date, a status change date. This is what I was alluding to earlier. Yes, in the data area, you could make sub lists or filter data based on status change. Why put yourself through the manual labor? Just use this filter. Let the dialer do the heavy lifting. You don't have to do it using this filter. And last but not least, a popular one is list price. You may be getting all list price, all properties into your properties list, and you decide that, hey, you know what? I'm changing the game this year, and I'm going to focus on properties, $500,000 and up, so 500K and up. You can do that with Mojo without doing any data entry. The dialer does it all for you by using this filter. All right. Let's go to the right side of this and we'll speed this right along. So call me feature. We have a feature for $25 a month. And if you don't want to call into the system using your phone, the system can call you. Why would you want to do that? It's getting less and less common, but some folks don't have unlimited long distance. So to dial into a New Hampshire number at our telecom center to fire up the dialer ends up costing them an arm and a leg. So for $25 a month, you can subscribe to it in the account area. The dialer will call you. You check the box and you enter your phone number. And then it'll call you. Which caller ID we're going to display, I can add one on the fly, by the way. We did put that in there in the last update with Mojo, the last major revision. Or I can just choose from these caller IDs that I have available to me. I can choose the voicemail I'm going to drop. I can choose a callback message I want to play. I can choose how many lines that Mojo is going to dial out for me. Not everybody dials, even on the multi-line dialer, not everyone dials with 3 lines. Sometimes I dial with 2 lines. Why is that? What's a scenario? I'll tell you. So let me just make sure this isn't a tip already. The reason why people would do that is my father lives in Zephyr Hills. And the thing about Zephyr Hills, Florida, if I was prospecting in Zephyr Hills, is one thing that's true. It is an older community. That's where people go when they don't want to be in New Hampshire anymore, right? Or in the Northeast or anywhere where it's cold, for that matter. If I was prospecting down there, the one thing that's true is around 10 o'clock in the morning, everybody comes home from their weekly, monthly, annual doctor's appointment. So if you're doing some neighborhood prospecting in that area, it's likely that people are going to pick the phone up. So do I want to dial on 2 lines or do I want to dial on 3 lines? What's the risk versus reward? I don't think there's any risk, but dialing on 2 lines will certainly lower the amount of callback messages that are being played, right? So if I know people are picking the phone up, then maybe I only want to dial on 2 lines. Dialing on 3 is really not going to increase my efficiency. That's why people ask us all the time, can I get 4 lines with Mojo, 5 lines with Mojo? Actually, the sweet spot's 3 lines when there's about a 10% contact rate. Once it goes over 10%, let's say 15, 18%, which happens in some areas, you're probably better off dialing with 2 lines. So that's why we offer that. Enough said. Of course, if you have a single line dialer license, you're only going to have the option for the single line. And then you can ask, or you can dictate how many rings, and this is important, folks. If I put you in a coma, snap out of it. The number of rings dialed before we determine a no answer is so important because a lot of people don't let them ring enough. So why do we even offer 4 rings? Here's why. Many coaching firms want us to offer 3 rings. They tell their students, let it ring 3 times and hang your phone up. You will get to someone that answers the phone. Don't waste your time. That was all true before the cell phone craze. Because here's what happens. Here's what might be costing you your contact rate. When I call a cell phone, it doesn't work like I'm calling a landline. See, a landline, we'll just use some terminology here, uses the public telephone network. It knows where that phone is, right? If I dial that, if the Mojo dialer begins to dial a landline, it's starting to dial that landline. It's done. There's no question. Cell phones are different. They got to hunt for them and find out what tower you're near, identify your SIM card, all that other crap that goes on. And here's what ends up happening. And this isn't because it's a Mojo thing. This is a telecom thing. It happens on every phone that calls a cell phone. It needs to hunt. It's using some of the ring time on the originating phone, in this case, your phone. It's using some of that ring time to find that subscriber. It's not actually ringing their phone. So what a lot of people will do, let me get off this and get back onto this. They'll set theirs to 4 because they think they're doing the right thing. They think they're avoiding answering machines, but really what you're doing is you're avoiding anybody that's on a cell phone in a lot of cases. Because 4 rings is about, I don't know, 26 to 30 seconds. If 8 seconds of that or 10 seconds of that is spent hunting that subscriber down, well, you're not giving it your the best effort to get them to pick the phone up. So one thing I would recommend people do today after leaving this seminar or this webinar is try increasing it to 5 or 6 rings and see what happens with your contact rate. That's a little tip. I would strongly recommend you guys try that out. I could choose a calling script I want to have pop up inside of Mojo when someone answers. I can choose to either have that calling script pop up automatically or it can be user controlled. Hi, is Jim there? Yeah, this is Jim. I hit the button and the script shows. Some people want the option, or I can choose to have it automatically pop up. I can choose which lead sheet that will show on my contact form by default, so I don't have to keep choosing it. And I can choose to have the lead sheet tab set as default. We talked about the tabs on the contact form. That's why I did that, so we can have this conversation in other ones like this. And that is, there's tabs. You can say use lead sheet as default, and you won't have to fiddle around with your mouse to get to that lead sheet tab. And then last but not least, it says filter out contacts who have a future call or appointment scheduled. This is in here for those people that don't qualify their leads very well, or they don't want to. Well, if you don't want to call somebody you've qualified, you probably have a future activity set with them. So you can check this box. I won't call anybody with a future call and appointment. But I would strongly recommend following the workflow that I gave you earlier. I get my New England accent every once in a while. I talked to you about earlier is the workflow that I would go with. Don't rely on filters for that kind of stuff. All right. So here we go. Let me get my notes back out here. Sorry about that. A little technical difficulty. All right. So we basically covered all the settings inside of the call wizard. Now it's just a matter of me going over the dialing bar real quick and firing this thing up. So depending on how many lines you have selected here, when you start calling, it's either going to be 1 line that dials, 2, or all 3. We're going to show the contact name, the status of the call, and the phone number. That's all we have room for. Once they pick up the phone, the contact form immediately switches to their contact information. We have a help video here. We have our last call result buttons here. What's a last call result button? It's pretty simple. If you're making a call and someone picks up the phone, or maybe the call gets connected, you can determine, you can tell Mojo, you can tell your reports, you can tell the database, you're going to update that record with the last call results. So if I talk to someone that's my target, I'm going to use what? Contact. If I call and it's old Joey and Dad's not home and I'm looking for Dad, I'm going to hit no contact. If I call and I'm looking for Martha and I ask for Martha, they're like, "There's no Martha here." Well, are you at 123 Main Street? No, I'm not at 123 Main Street. Well, Martha owns 123 Main Street and she's not there. I better hit bad phone number. It'll update the database and it'll actually remove that phone number from the record so you're not wasting your time again in the future. I can drop a message. If I choose a message here in the call wizard, okay, this will say drop message. And I can set the default message to drop, and every time I click it when I hear an answer machine, it'll drop that message. But maybe I want to switch it up for some reason. Maybe I'm bilingual, and the answer machine message that I'm hearing is in Spanish. I can actually choose the plus button once it's dialing here. I can choose the plus button and choose my Spanish message. See how that works? So I have a default one. I'm doing it all the time. I chose it over here. I'm just clicking it away every time I hear an answer machine. And then every once in a while, I get a Spanish answer machine. I click this and I choose a Spanish one. But moving forward, it'll be the same one that I chose here. Now, if I don't choose a callback, if I don't choose a voicemail message to drop, this is going to say left message. It's going to say left message to indicate in the database that you left a message manually. I left it, I spoke it, or I dropped it. And it's going to depend on what you choose here, whether or not it says dropped or left message. I have my DNC contact and DNC phone number. A lot of people scratch their head at this, and it is confusing, but once we explain it, it makes perfect sense. If I call somebody and there's 5 phone numbers on the record, and I get the person on line number 1, and they're like, "What? Don't call me, blah, blah, I'm on the DNC list, or you better put me on your DNC list." Well, you could ask them, "Hey, are these your other phone numbers?" And they may say yes or they may say no. Remember, all of us lead providers try to get you the exact phone numbers for that contact. But sometimes the data sets that we reference when we do these lookups have an old phone number and someone else is there. So DNC contact in that case would DNC the entire contact. It would go into your internal DNC list in Mojo, and anytime the posting service or try to insert that phone number or that record, anytime you try to import it in a lead file, it would be blocked from coming into Mojo. That's what DNC contact does. But let's say I have this heater on the phone and I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, just so I know I never call you again, is 603 305 4651 your number 2?" If he says, "I don't know who that is," well, guess what? That might be the phone number your target's at. So don't DNC the whole contact. You're leaving the money on the table. You're going to want to just hit DNC phone number. And it applies just that phone number to the DNC list. It leaves a contact in place with all the other phone numbers for you to attempt. Hopefully that makes sense. Quick, and again, I want to speed through this. Quick callback. If I'm on the phone with somebody and they say, "Call me back in 10 minutes, I have options. And I'm going to demonstrate this actually in a minute rather than go over it here. Redial, I'm calling. The person's on a cell phone. I have a bad connection. Well, I just started a relationship. They have a bad connection. They want to know why I'm calling them. I mean, I don't think it's very professional to just end the call and move on to your next 300 calls, right? I would hit the redial button, and then as soon as you hit the last call result, it'll call them right back. All right. Hopefully that it establishes a better connection. I can pause the dialer for up to 8 minutes. During that time, maybe I can take notes on a contact, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute. And then I can hang up, and this is very specific. This hang up button does not hang up your phone to our our dialers. It hangs up the dialer to your contact. That's all it does. Here's an example. I call someone on the phone, they just start screaming at me. I love using this example because what's your impulse? Someone starts screaming at you. You hang up your phone. Who wants to take that, right? You don't deserve that. Don't do that with Mojo though, because you'll have to dial back into the system. You just simply click OK, hang up. It breaks that connection. You're no longer talking to that person. You're still logged into Mojo, but the dialer hung up on them, not you, on them. And now you can hit DNC contact, and it will move on to the next round of calls. So that's what hang up does. And naturally, there's a stop. So let's go ahead. I'm going to call this list from top to bottom. I'm going to dial into it with my cell phone. I'm going to dial with 3 lines today. Why not? All this is good. All right. What do? I follow the instruction. I'm going to hit start dialing, excuse me. Tip number 10. This dialing preview, this is super important. A lot of folks, remember all those fancy filters I showed you a minute ago? Well, they filter out data and only leave the data you want to call. That's the purpose of a filter in Mojo. So what happens if on Monday I want to call in a status change date range of the 1st to the 3rd? And then I log in on the 4th and I choose my expireds and I don't pay attention to my filters and I go to start calling. What's going to happen? This puppy right here is going to say there's no data or no records that match your criteria. And what do? You call Mojo. Some of you are nice. Some of you get frustrated, just like I would, and you say, hey, I just loaded up a bunch of records. I see them with my eyeballs in my data area, and Mojo's not doing it. What's going on? This little area right here is super important. It's a great reference. It will tell you if we're filtering out any data. And in the example I gave you, it's because you didn't clear the status change date filters. So you would need to hit cancel, come back here into the optional filters, clear it, save, fire it back up, look at the preview again, and poof, they're all there. So stick that in, have that as a quill in your cap, because that's a really super, super, super common ticket and phone call that we get. It's not calling all the people I think it should be calling. Well, there's a filter on, and that's how you know. All right, so it's asking me to start dialing. What's the next step? For those of you that dialed into the dialer before, I'm going to log into the dialer. Let's talk about that from a mechanical level. What can we use to dial into Mojo with? You can use, if it were up to me, every one of our clients would have a 4-wire landline. So a landline phone. Then you go to the other type of landline, which really isn't a landline, but everyone thinks it's a landline, which is an Ethernet phone. A VoIP phone that is powered by an Ethernet cable. All right, so it's an internet phone, VoIP, VoIP. Or you can use a cell phone, or we have a lot of people that still use Skype, which would be called like a SIP phone. It's on your computer, or even Google Voice. Now, every one of those options, you're going to have varying success with Mojo. What does success look like? Success is someone picks up the phone and 9.5 out of 10 times it's a first hello. That's success, and that's the experience with a 4-wire landline. Success is the crystal clear call quality. All right. Those are the two benchmarks. Obviously, if you're dropping calls, that's terrible. That'll only happen with a VoIP phone. So we strongly urge you to dial in. If it's from lowest quality to highest quality, if lowest quality is Skype and Google Voice, we strongly say, and the top quality is a landline, 4-wire landline. Obviously, we want you to climb that ladder as far as you can get when you start using Mojo, because the quality of a call, our system is built from the ground up like the old school phone company used to be. How many of you had bad phone quality dialing in 1989 or 1994 to your neighbor or into a company, right? It was always first hello. It was always great call quality. That technology is what Mojo's built on. The variable is what you physically use to dial into our system with. If you're using Skype, that's super dependent on your internet connection. If you're in a Keller Williams Market Center, how good is your internet connection going to be if there's 60 people hogging it down with you at the same time? If you're using Google Voice, how good is that free SIP service how good is that going to be with the phone quality? If you want to know, I challenge you to Google Skype call quality issues or Google's call quality issues. It's terrible. Some of you use it and some of you rant and rave about it, and I'm just thinking you have great internet. So that's good. It does work for some people, but if you call into us to talk about call quality issues, we're going to ask you what phone you used. All right. This is going along too far. Excuse me, in time. We're already at 4:16. So the bottom line is go up the chain as far as you can with call quality. And that is, again, a 4-wire landline, or if it's business VoIP, that's good, or a cell phone set to dial over the cellular network are going to be your best options. So now I'm going to dial in with my cell phone, connecting to the dialer. It's giving me a phone number to dial into, just like it would you. And now I'm going to dial into it.
Your touchtone phone, please enter your PIN number.
73 is my PIN.
You are now logged into the Mojo.
I'm locked and loaded. I'm in the cockpit. I'm ready to go. I'm calling my trending list. So it's not like I can crash and burn here, folks. I'm in my trending list, and I challenge you guys to do that as well. Now this big green button, I hit play. It starts dialing. We'll see the 3 lines dial up. While I'm dialing, there are some metrics down here underneath the dialing boxes. Here's my first live connect. I'm going to sit on that for a minute and shut my speakerphone off, so it's driving me nuts. We have total contacts for this dialing session. Total. So basically, we list out your last call result buttons, how many you hit during the call session, and then from a total perspective, because some of you log in and out of Mojo every day, we show you total dialing time and total daily contacts, and then of course we show you how many total calls you made in this call session, and whatnot, how many calls. All right, so that's what this dialing bar does. That's what it's got for reporting. Again, now we see the last call result buttons are lit up. I can do a quick call back. If this person, for some reason, wanted me to call them back, I want to demo that real quick. It's not very important right now, but I can say, call me back in 10, 50, or he can say, or she can say, to have me call them back in 10, 15, 30 minutes or an hour. If I know I'm going to be logged into Mojo at that time, I can actually schedule that time frame. And then when that time frame comes, I forgot all about them, right? Mojo's actually going to pause the dialer and dial that person right back. Super handy if you're not getting out of the dialer. Otherwise, I would suggest you either set a follow-up call or set a phone appointment. So that is what that quick callback does. So the information popped up. It's all in front of me. I can do show calling script, or I could have set it to automatically pop up. Whatever works for you guys, you can do that. I read from the script. I put them into the group of my choice. They tell me to go get lost. I'm going to say it's a dead lead. Now I have to choose the correct last call result button, which does what? It updates the database with the result of the call, and it also moves me on to the next. I did contact them. It wasn't a good call outcome. It was a dead lead. I'm going to click contact, and the dialer is going to fire off another round of calls. Now let's say there's someone in here I don't want to talk to. Ooh, what do I want to do? I missed it. Darn it. Did I wake you guys up? All right. I'm talking, I asked for Bill. Little Joey picked up the phone. I'm going to hit no contact. Fires off another round of calls. Now, as the lines are dialing, I can actually hit X here and stop that contact from being called. And it shows briefly, it's skipping it, and in the call reports, it lets you know you've skipped that phone number. That was the outcome. So here I am again. I'm on the phone with this person. I'm making some notes. I post the note. Maybe I get their email address. Maybe I'll look at Street View, whatever. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit contact. Now, when I'm done dialing, again, we're just rolling through. We don't have a lot of time here to keep demonstrating this because I've demonstrated the nuts and the bolts as much as I can. So again, I'm on the phone with someone. I see that there's a Mojo contact. There's a contact here. I ask for them because I see their name right here. Fantastic. I hit contact. Now, in the case that a callback message happened, again, I'm on line 1. Line 2 or 3 picks up the phone. Line 2 and 3 are going to hear the callback message. They hang up the phone because they realize you're going to call them right back. And when I'm done with line 1, it's only going to place a single call out to that person that heard the callback message. And then when I disposition that call or apply a last call result, is what I meant to say, it'll fire off a round of 3 again. So it's a nice, progressive way to get through those callbacks. So I have someone here on the phone. I'll set an appointment real quick for Saturday at 12 p.m. Done. Great. I hit save. I just set that appointment. It's on my calendar. I'll be alerted of it now. And I hit contact. Last but not least, I'm going to pause the dialer. When you hit pause, it'll finish off the remainder of the dialing lines. And then when those come to an end, it'll actually pause it. We do that so you don't accidentally hang up on someone. If you had to get off the phone immediately, like doesn't matter, you got to run to the restroom or whatever. They're running a birthday cake out to you because it's your birthday. They start singing. You just hit the stop button. It'll end it, period. So that's going to wrap up this dialing demonstration. I told you that I was going to go over some tips. This went way longer. I wasn't keeping track of my time. I'm going to give you those tips because I promised to do it. There are a lot of tips, by the way, folks. And I would suggest you call into our team or do a Google search for any tips out there that other users are using, as well as check out our blog and check out the agent interviews. But let's talk through these 6 tips real quick. Don't keep your ring count too low. In this day and age, 5 or 6 rings is the sweet spot. If you find that you're getting a lot of voicemails, who cares? Press a button. No contact. Move on to the next one. You're going to see an upside in how many people that you're actually making contact with if you're calling on mobile phone data. All right. The next thing, don't spend too much time making changes to your lists using sublists or data filtering when we have an available call filter that gives you the same end result. For example, I wouldn't want to go into my sublist creator, okay? We'll go into, do I have actives? I have expireds in here. I wouldn't want to go into my sublist creator and look for expireds and then put in a to and from date for my status change date. I wouldn't want to do that except that takes time. I would let the calling filter, the optional calling filter, status change date, do that heavy lifting for me. That's the second tip. A lot of people don't even realize those optional calling filters are there. I would strongly suggest you can reconsider using a burner phone for your caller ID that you're pulsing out there. See, because Mojo makes you authenticate or confirm that phone number, and a lot of people use a burner phone. What successful people have found is people call back. They're naturally suspicious. If you're not leaving messages, even if you're not leaving messages, I should say, they call back because a phone called their number. Yes, you're going to catch some heat from some people, but that phone call being placed back to you might be a preemptive strike. All right. It might be a score for you instead of the person tomorrow that's going to prospect them with Mojo. So using a burner phone, we feel as a company, it lets a lot of opportunity go by the wayside. So you can do that. Naturally, there's some benefits using a burner phone, but in real estate, if you're in real estate, you're really about making and building relationships and taking that call back and using our mobile app like Caller ID, which is part of Mojo on the Go to identify the person as they're calling you back, is, in my opinion, the better way to handle a callback rather than using a burner phone. Okay. Again, be careful using calling top to bottom as a easy calling mode because you may find yourself in a situation where you never fully saturate the list. It happens all the time. Mojo goes quick. You log in, log out, log in, log out. Oh my goodness, I've done 10 dialing sessions on this one list and I haven't ever reached the bottom of it. Those things are collecting dust. All right, so we want to make sure we're using the right easy calling mode. Take notes on calls. In the reports area, it will show you the note that you've taken in the call detail report. If you take good notes and you have any questions after the call session about how a specific conversation went, or maybe you committed to someone to send them out a package, but you didn't write it down or you didn't make a task in Mojo, it just slipped your brain. At least you know that if you made a note, you can go back into the call detail report and see that note exists and that's the guy or that's the girl I talked to. And then last but not least, actually, I'll give you 2 more. The next one is going to be this. We have a lot of agents, and it might be driven by call reluctance. It might be driven by just that they're brand new and they haven't experienced the best way to drop a message yet. We have a lot of clients that are new, and that's who I targeted in this demonstration, who use the voicemail drop message inside of Mojo that you can drop. They use it to sell. And because it's more comfortable than actually talking to somebody for them when they're brand new. And that's natural. That is natural call reluctance. That will go by the wayside as you start to prospect. But don't make the mistake of leaving too long of a message and letting them know why you're calling. The best, and I've run this by a lot of people, this wasn't my idea, it was a long-term clients. One of the best things you can say in a message is simple. Hey, hi Joe, I've got great news about your home. Great news, call me back. Some variation of that. Yeah, it may require you to leave it manually instead of auto dropping it, because you might want to drop their first name in it. And obviously, you can't know who's going to pick up the phone, so you have to do that verbally. But that is a great way to get someone to call you back. It's much more effective than saying, hi, this is Dave England from ABC Realty. I see that your home went expired. I want to talk about why you think maybe it didn't sell, or whatever it is you're leaving for a message. Who isn't leaving that message? And then in between all that, they hear, hey, Joe, it's Dave England from ABC Realty. I've got great news about your house. Give me a call. They don't, well, he's got great news. I got to hear what this great news is. So that's a tip. Last but not least, change up your caller ID. I told you I'd cover this. I just didn't expect it to be this long into the webinar. Change up your caller ID. Don't use one caller ID. People turtle. What happens when you're driving down the road and you go out to help that turtle cross on the road? You don't want to be run over by a car. You get out, you walk up, they sense the vibrations, whoop, right in the shell. They will not, for the life of them, stick their head out of the shell. Consumers, homeowners, leads, they're the same way. Okay? If you're in a if you're in a popular, or I should say, if your area that you service has a lot of people who prospect in it, you have people turtling all around you, okay? Because as soon as their home goes expired, they will get 13 phone calls that morning. It only takes the one, maybe two calls. The first call, hi, this is Dave. Yeah, I'm calling because your house went expired. Weird. I don't usually get phone calls like that. Then a minute later, the second one comes in, or 10 minutes later, hi, this is Steve with ABC Realty. That's what all these calls are. Yikes, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I'm not going to pick the phone up. Okay, one way to help prevent that is first, don't focus on brand new expireds all the time. Let them go a couple weeks before you retry them again. Sure, some of them might have listed, but they're not going to be in your expired list if you're getting them updated via our properties calling list area, right? Those guys are already out of the list. But if you wait a few weeks, they start to come out of their shell. One way to prevent that in the first place, for you specifically as an agent, is don't keep calling on the same caller ID. Mix it up. Call them at 10 a.m. with this caller ID. If you come back at the end of the day at 3, change up your caller ID. You don't want to show up over and over and over and over again and look like you're a nuisance. You will absolutely get the unsuspecting person that picks up the phone because it's a caller ID they haven't seen yet. That's going to wrap up my tips. Sorry, I kind of breezed through those, but I think I got the bulk of it done. I'm going to go ahead and check with Brandon, make sure he answered all the questions. He's over there shaking his head saying, Dave, you promised. And I do. So I just want to make sure that we have everything taken care of.
I think everything's for the last question.
Last question?
Yeah. My eyes were answering another question when you're clicking, so.
All right. All right, so somebody asked, so it looks like all the questions have been taken care of. Someone asked, what did he press to pull the calendar up during the call? Robin, that's a great question. Let me demonstrate it for you real quick, because I actually don't have to be in a phone call to do this. I press this orange button right here. See, on the contact form, you can either set an appointment, a task, or a follow-up by entering the actions menu, or once you're familiar with the color coding and you get it down, you don't need to do that at all. You just say, orange is for appointment. So I press the orange plus button to add an appointment, just like that. Or I can say, I want to set a task, so I press the blue, because blue is associated with task. Or I can say, last but not least, follow-up call. And I'll get into that on another flash webinar that I promised to keep in an hour. Promise. All right. Let's see. Any other questions roll in? Yes, Jerry, it is recorded. And sorry you're going to go through an hour and a half of it. I apologize in advance. All right, so if that's going to wrap up the questions, I'm going to leave. It's still quite a few people here, actually. I'm going to leave it open for another 30 seconds. Some of you don't type very fast, but 30 seconds should get it done. And then if I don't get any questions within 30 seconds, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the webinar. again, we like to do this. We try to do this once a week with flash webinars. We've been super busy. Yeah, again, most of you are probably new here, but we're constantly, I should say, Mojo is constantly evolving, and it takes a lot of time to operate like that. We don't sit still for even a minute. So that's where a lot of our innovations come from. So hopefully you guys can appreciate that and keep coming back to webinars, because chances are something's going to change. If you watch this webinar, I don't know, 4 months ago, there's definitely something in it different today. And I won't always just target new users. So I keep all that in mind. All right, so I don't have any new questions. So we're going to wrap up this webinar. Again, I want to thank everybody for your time today. I apologize it went so long. I hope you've all had one or two aha moments about how to use the power dialer successfully. Anyone can just light it up and start calling people, but preparation's key, setting it up is key, good workflow is key, and it's all key to short-term and long-term success with prospecting. And with that, I am out. Make it a great day, everybody.